Hey, good morning, afternoon, or evening, good people, wherever you are, wherever you happen to be, and however we're together. Thanks for being here. I'm Dave, and this is Dave's Head. So, what's in my head? Before I talk about what's in my head, let's discuss something if you're on Spotify, video, or YouTube that you're probably seeing and wondering what the hell is going on. Bust a blood vessel in my eye, which if I look that way, you could probably see it. Um, Doing something I've probably done, I don't know, 2,500, 3,000 times, probably way more than that in my life, which is blowing my nose. And it was interesting. I played in a golf tournament last week, and while I'm in the shower getting, prepared to go to this golf tournament for the 100 Black Men, great golf tournament, by the way. Um, in the shower, blow my nose. Some people do that in the shower, some people don't. I get out the shower, walk past the mirror, come back to the mirror, go to brush my teeth in the sink, and I look up and I'm like, whoa, what the hell? And realize it took me a while to realize, when it actually happened and how it actually happened, because I did remember seeing it before I got in the shower, but I wasn't sure because it's not like I was looking, at the mirror and going, hey, do I have a blood, vessel busted in my eye? But as I kind of replayed over and over again, trying to figure out how the hell this could happen, it dawned on me that was the way it happened. But eyes perfectly fine. Never was any pain. Never was any irritation. Just bust a blood vessel. When I got home from the golf tournament on Wednesday, I went to Dr. Google because that's what people do who don't know why things happen. And Dr. Google said it'll be healed in 5 to 7 days, and we're at day 5. So we'll see. But what's in my head? So, first, separation of church and state. I thought that was a thing. But Louisiana Governor Jeff Landry, Republican, wants his state to be at the forefront of the national movement to advance legislation with a Christian worldview. Governor Landry signed into law a mandate that, small government, Republicans hate government overreach, but signed into law a mandate that the Ten Commandments be hung in every public classroom in Louisiana. A couple problems with this. One, didn't realize this was a Christian country or one specific religion country. I could have swore we had freedom of religion, which means the freedom to practice any religion or no religion at all. That's what I thought. Clearly, the state's rights can force you to observe a specific religion. I would love to see, by the way, if there are plethora of lawsuits coming down the pipe for Islamic and Jewish and Buddhist and Taoism and all the types of religions in the world. There's something like, I don't know, thousands of religions in this world. It'd be interesting to see if the lawsuits just start pouring in. Well, I want this, the Torah, I want this, I want that. And to see how the court system handles that. Because I can see that being something that goes all the way up to the Supreme Court. If people actually started filing lawsuits saying, I want my religion in the classroom then. My religion is being disenfranchised by you forcing that one. It'd be interesting to see. But what I find so interesting that they're forcing this Ten Commandments into classrooms is the irony of the education system in Louisiana in general. And no disrespect to people in Louisiana, because I know people in Louisiana. No disrespect to them. But the education system is not great. Louisiana was ranked 40th on the U.S. News and World Report's list of the best states for pre-K through 12th grade education. That was up from 41st. They're 40th, up from 41st. It's the highest Louisiana has ever been on the list. The highest for education, pre-K through 12, which is basically the entire damn education system, but is the bottom 10 in the country. Think about that. The highest they've ever been is the bottom 10 in the country. A couple other things. Louisiana, focused on the 10 Commandments in classrooms. Education, bottom 10th in the country. What could be more important than that? Let's see. According to the same U.S. News and World Report, Louisiana is ranked 50th overall. How many states are there in the country? 50. They're ranked 50. Let's look at the reasons why. The number 50 in crime and corrections. Again, 50 is a bad number. 50 is dead last. The number 49 in economy. 47th in education. So this is overall education. This is including college, pre-K, all this stuff, and everything in between. 41st in fiscal stability. 46th in healthcare. 49th in infrastructure. 49th in natural environment. And 44th in opportunity. But yes, let's try to ram a religion that not only the leader of their party, but most of these, I'm just call it what it is, Bible thumping, pretending Republicans don't practice in their daily lives. But we're going to try to ram the 10 Commandments down. We're going to pass legislation, waste time doing all this, when the highest you are ranked in anything is 40th. The things that contribute to you being dead last in the entire country, things like crime, economy, education, healthcare, infrastructure, opportunity. You're 44th in opportunity, which means you're bottom 6 in the country in opportunities in your state. Opportunity to make money, opportunity to grow, opportunity to build, opportunities for healthcare, education, opportunities to have a great life. You're bottom 6 in the country. But newsflash, the U.S. is not a Christian nation. There is literally a thing called freedom of religion. It's part of the Constitution. I know some people swear by it. Other people actually practice it, right? Big difference. Some people talk about the Constitution. Some people actually practice and adhere to it. Freedom does not mean the opposite of freedom. People have a choice of religion or no religion at all. It reminds me of forced patriotism, right? You're going to force people to pledge allegiance to the flag in classrooms. I'm putting this on the same plane as that. You're going to force people to sing the Star Spangled Banner at the start of every school day. Now you're going to force the 10 Commandments on people in classrooms, in public schools. Granted, thankfully, you can't force it in private schools. You can't force it in Catholic schools, which is the irony of things, right? But Governor Landry wants to make Louisiana religious again? Mara? Is it? No. M-L? Yeah, see, that's not even a word. That makes sense. For some reason, he wants to force the 10 Commandments down people's throats. I'm all for people honoring and living their religion, as you should. It's a commitment to those who actually commit. Don't just talk about it, but actually live it. I completely understand. Have nothing against anyone who believes in a religious deity, religion, whatever. I happen to be one of those people who don't subscribe to religion. I'm a spiritual person, not religious. Whole different conversation we can have anytime. But to ram a religion down people's throats, people being children, almost feels very indoctrinous, right? And I get it. You don't want, trans or whatever book readings in school. Cool. You don't want your children to feel indoctrinated to be gay. Cool. I get that. Totally fine. But forcing the 10 Commandments on them feels very much the same. Speaking of indoctrination, the next thing that's on my mind is the presidential debate. By the time this episode airs, the first of what supposedly is 2, we'll see if it actually gets to 2, presidential debates will take place. CNN is hosting a different formatted debate in Atlanta where the 2 candidates are bypassing just the traditional debate format that is usually determined by the Commission on Presidential Debates. Yes, there's an actual commission on presidential debates, in case you weren't aware. And they're instead using a set of mutually agreed rules and conditions. Notably, here's a couple of them. 1, there will be no audience. So no clapping for this candidate or clapping for that candidate or booing this idea or booing that idea. it's going to be awkwardly silent, to tell you the truth. I kind of like the audience thing because at least it keeps me interested. Oh, they're booing or they're laughing or whatever. No opening statements. Just kind of walking into the podium. Question. Again, a little awkward because I kind of want to hear. It's kind of like a trial, right? I want to hear the opening statement because you're supposed to, in your opening statement in court, right? Tell the jury what you're going to prove or tell the jury what they're going to not prove, right? If you're the defense. Tell the jury why your candidate is innocent, right? But you don't have an opening statement. You're kind of just going right into the testimony, if you will. Kind of weird. One thing I kind of love, but at the same time I am a little indifferent, is each candidate's microphone will be muted except when it's their turn to speak. Here's where I kind of think this doesn't benefit President Biden. I think keeping the microphones live, whether it's your turn to talk or not, shows yet again the character of each candidate. I think if you go back to the 2020 debates, the disrespect, the rudeness, the over-talking. At one point, President Biden said, "Would you just shut up, man?" If you go back and look at that clip. I think it shows the true character of someone if you don't mute the microphones. By muting the microphones, it's a audible clue to both of them, I'm not supposed to be talking now. It's a reminder. It's kind of like, you got that teacher that slaps the ruler every time you use something you're not supposed to do, they kind of straighten you up. Well, if your mic is not on, you don't hear yourself say things under your breath. Oh, that's right. Let me let him finish. As opposed to being who you are, whether good or bad, but being who you are. If you're rude SOB, it's going to show. Except if you mute the mics and it kind of gets hidden a little bit. So I kind of wish they just left the mics alone. No props or pre-written notes will be allowed on stage. I wasn't aware you could bring props, but apparently that had to be spelled out. I'm really not sure what kind of props will be brought, but like would Biden bring like an orange wig and throw it on, or I guess kind of white wig with orange makeup on it and slap it on his head? Would Trump bring like a crack vial or something? I mean, there are so many unfortunate possibilities. So I kind of agree with this. No props. I didn't know you could bring props, but apparently that had to be spelled out. So cool. One other thing too. So I did see there's going to be, I think, 3 commercial breaks in the time span, and neither candidate is allowed to engage with their campaign during those breaks, which I find interesting. One, what you walk onto that stage with, what you're prepared with, and how you're prepared. And it's reported that Trump's not doing any preparation at all. Biden's in Camp David, prepping. Tale of two strategies, right? But by not being able to gauge your campaign during those breaks, that 90 minutes, I believe it's 90 minutes, you're up there with what you know, who you are, and a message or messages you want to convey to the American people and the world, really. And so if you are not adequately prepared to convey your message, to rebut a message from the other candidate, that's going to show. Now, the breaks do allow you to gather your thoughts, prepare for the next segment. So there's that. But if you're blatantly missing something because either you froze up, you weren't prepared, you just didn't know any of those things, all of those things, your campaign can't help you. And so I kind of like that one. It's a little bit of a test, right? There's this narrative going around, and let's pause for a second. They're both old AF, right? They're both old as fuck, right? But there's this narrative, Sleepy Joe, he won't make it 90 minutes, blah, blah, blah. There's also the other side narrative that Trump deranged, dementia. You just listen to their speeches. They're both kind of a mess at times. But I think this is a real test for both, because for that 90 minutes, it's all you. It's not your team. It's not, anybody else but Biden and Trump. So I kind of like that one. The last thing, candidates will only be given a pen, paper, and a bottle of water. That's it. That's all they're going to have up there. Now, how they use that, who knows? If knowing that I'm them, one of the things I'm preparing to do is when I get up there, if I'm first, I'm listening to the other candidate, taking notes, whatever. But I've already practiced writing down bullet points, right? Or I'm just writing down bullet points to remind myself, yep, got to talk about this, got to talk about that. Giving myself keywords. Remember this: cat, dog, mouse, rat, snake, right? Because cat reminds me of a cheetah, and cheetah's orange. I don't know, whatever. But I'm using that opportunity when I get up there and I see that pad and that pen, I'm taking it out, writing down my keywords right away. Because these are the things I said, these 6 things, these 10 things, said I'm going to talk about these, write these down on a pad. That way I remember them, whether it's minute 1 or minute 89. That's a strategy I would use. All I got is a pen and me. So I might as well write these things down. And as I go through them, check them off, make this point, make that point. Whatever those keywords are supposed to guide me to do, that's what I'm doing. Because I can't go back to my team and say, hey, did I talk about that? Did I talk about this? Did I forget anything? It'd be interesting. There's probably less than a 25% chance that I will watch the debate. First and foremost, number one, I pretty much know who I'm voting for at this point. I mean, there is I don't know if I can say enough point zeros to get to the other side of that probability. So yeah, I know who I'm voting for at this point. Number two, I'm kind of more sick of the politics, the glorified lying, the double standards, the cult followers. I'm kind of just over it at this point. I have communicated and talked about this with friends and family. I've probably even said it on air before. I kind of can't wait for the time when neither one of these candidates are in the picture. We have got to get to a point where better pool of people are in this pot. And full transparency, MAGA people aren't part of that pool. Cult people aren't part of that pool. J6 people aren't part of that pool. People who claim to love the Constitution but rarely adhere to the Constitution aren't part of that pool. This whole election process to me is annoying because of the ugliness that's around it, whether it be the rhetoric or the people. And it's definitely both. So I will probably not be watching. Not to mention I have something to do. I have to give not a speech, but I have to present something at an event that night. So I won't likely be watching. I'll catch the cliff notes on YouTube or something like that. Adapt to Adopt was created for adoptees to have a safe space to be themselves. They provide recreational support to adopted children and youth through recreational support groups, a mentoring program, sports and community service projects, and more. Tap in on Wednesdays for Adapt to Adopt's What's Up Wednesday video series, an informational check-in update video for their supporters. You can watch it on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook. For more information, visit their website at www.adapttoadopt.org. Last thing that's on my mind, sponsored by Adapt to Adopt. If you follow this journey, the past 5 seasons, you know that July and August are typically off time for Dave's Head Podcast. This season is no different. This episode, which is the second one in June, which you know I do 2 episodes a month. After this episode, you will not hear from me again, at least on an episode, until September. But this off season, if you will, mid-season break, we'll call it that, is a little different than prior. There's 2 things that are going to be occurring that warrant confetti, right? Confetti. I like the word confetti. It just kind of flows off your mouth, confetti. But one in July, one in August, both involving my TO. Now, July is her birthday month. Last year, sprung a little surprise on her, a little surprise happy hour on her. I'm not going to show the picture. Don't worry, because I know she's listening or watching. I won't show that picture. And she knows the picture I'm talking about. But it was a picture that showed some waterworks created because, the surprise was kind of heartwarming for her. This year, I'm going to probably stick to my surprise idea. Either way, the golden child will be absolutely celebrated. And I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I haven't already planned things. I've planned things already, but I'm trying to downplay it right now. You know, going to be some surprise stuff for sure. August, however, marks 1 year of our official, quote unquote, official relationship. You know, who knew that two people um, randomly meeting many years ago, a decade ago. Wow. Um, we lost touch, living out our own separate lives. Um, who knew that those people would reconnect after both of us endured and grew through our respective storms, um, built a real friendship, and that it would lead to this. You know, I've gone through life meeting people. Some I got relationships with, some I didn't. Some relationships were fast, some weren't. Um, but building a friendship with someone, growing to care about someone as a friend, to love someone as a friend, and then deciding to start a relationship with them is an amazing. And everyone I've kind of talked to about that path, that journey, have, said that's the way to do it. That's what they did. And we've been married for 30 years. That's how we started, just as friends. We built this amazing friendship. And it is different, right? It is different when you build a friendship and then get into a relationship, as opposed to you meet each other, you kind of court, you get into a relationship, and then you kind of find out all the intricacies of each other. It's a little different, right? Because as I've had conversations with people about this, there's a mutual respect that's built in a friendship first. And trust me, it's not to disparage. And I repeat, not to disparage anyone, or any ones, I should say, who did not have an elongated friendship prior to getting a relationship, being married, blah, 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 blah. Whatever you do in your life that leads to happiness, longevity, an amazing partnership, 100% for. So congratulations if your path was not mine. 100%. But these, even if this was delayed, because it was 10 years ago, we weren't on this path at all. Literally, I stared at her until she kind of got annoyed. Then I disarmed her a little bit. I'm a little suave back then. But even with all that, we weren't on this path 10 years ago. We got to this path after reconnecting after some time. I got whole married, right? It was in the process of divorce when we reconnected. The longest divorce ever. But so happy it's over. A long time ago. I think it's been over a year since it's been over. I don't even know anymore. I don't even exist in that world anymore. But these next 2 months will be full of celebration and confetti. Love the word confetti. And I can't wait to observe it and, more importantly, enjoy it. Because both of them, while they involve me, more importantly, they both involve her. And I'm just looking forward to each of those days being celebrated in very different ways, by the way. One being a birthday, one being an anniversary. But looking forward to seeing her reaction, and also experiencing my reaction, right? Not so much her birthday, because the birthday is about her, but our anniversary. I'm sure we will do for each other as we have done for each other. And so that's what's in my head. Technology Today, just this past March, published an article, The Surprising Appeal of Men with Dad Bods. And they talked about three things. The first of the three was this: a dating.com survey reported that almost 75% of singles prefer the dad bod. A 2017 survey by Planet Fitness reported that 78% of women feel men with dad bods are confident in their own skin. Go figure. Nearly half of women, 47%, even believe dad bods are the new six pack. Don't know how, but hey, we'll work with it. And nearly 3 in 5, 58% of mothers feel dad bods are the new six pack as well. 83% of mothers would be proud to have their husband with a dad bod. These are all facts. Look them up. Additionally, a dating.com survey back in 2021 reported that almost 75% of singles like the dad bod, preferring a build that isn't very chiseled. I have personal experience with this because I was told many times in my life your body's too hard, too much muscle, blah, blah, blah. True story. So the second thing they talked about were the traits associated or attributed to men with dad bods being the key to the appeal. And so research showed that men who are very physically attractive have some characteristics that women find unappealing. For example, extremely attractive men are more likely to cheat, they say. Of course, attractive individuals get more offers to cheat. So there's kind of that caveat as well, right? Bit of the chicken or the egg thing right there. Men with higher levels of testosterone, don't know how we calculate that on the spot, tend to be more aggressive. Men with facial features indicative of high masculinity. So I'm guessing beards, nice jaw lines, that type of thing, which can be a product of their testosterone, they say, may be perceived as more likely to be an enemy than a friend. Go figure. Women might find a male they assume to have a lower testosterone level more appealing because he would be assumed to be less aggressive. There's the aggressive thing again, and have characteristics that would make him a better partner and also a better father. A lot of assumptions here. We're just going to keep going with this though. Women may prefer men with lower levels of testosterone as their long term mates. That's all very interesting stuff. Let me just say, I couldn't tell you what my testosterone level is. I have a beard, obviously. I don't know if this makes me more threatening or less threatening, seem more like a friend or more like an enemy. I don't have a chisel body like I did, say, 15 years ago, but it's pretty good shape. Um, it's an interesting conversation to have, right? Because we associate chiseledness and shapeness with better health than supposedly dad bods, right? But why am I talking about dad bods? Um, the third thing, real quick, I'll get to why I'm talking about it in a second. The third thing is that dad bods received higher ratings on evolutionary fitness traits, affection, nurturing, friendly. A study using male figures to waist with waist to chest ratios ranging from zero point 0.6 to zero point 0.9. And they said that a waist to chest ratio of zero point 0.8 or zero point 0.9 would be corresponding to a dad bod. Got all that? We'll move forward. Found that male figures with low WCRs received a higher rating for attractiveness, while figures with WCRs that corresponded to a dad bod got lower attractiveness ratings, but received higher ratings for evolutionary fitness traits such as affectionate, nurturing, friendly, good parent, and older. Older meaning living longer. Weird, I get it. Cell and colleagues in 2017 reported that a strong but not buff body is most appealing overall. That appeal may be because the traits attributed to a dad bod body type relate to long-term mating success. Coming back to mating success again. The dad bod is not necessarily physically attractive, but it's appealing because it evolutionarily fits in other ways with women's choices for partners for successful long-term dating. So what's a man's priority? Personal health or appealing to a larger pool of potentially long-term partners? Kind of that tough choice to make, right? Is this an unfair dichotomy? Should we aim to live our best lives? And what will our best lives be? Is it more physically in shape? Is it the dad bod kind of? Because think about it, physically in shape, dad bod, and there's kind of what's considered extremely unattractive, obese, fat, that type of stuff. Somewhere in between, they kind of fit dad bod, which is kind of like a catch-all between that buff guy with the six pack and everything else that doesn't appeal to a lot of women. Or is all this conversation about us just being obsessed with the dad bod and our own detriment, with the association and all that? Who knows? Here's why I'm talking about dad bods today, because I want to bring in my guest for this episode, Cam Hall. A little bit about him. He believes that all men are called to live fit, healthy, and fulfilled lives with their families, and is committed to the vision of engaging men in their personal and professional development through a foundation of personal growth and accountability. Love the word accountability. He started the Fight the Dad Bod to help fathers live fit, healthy, and fulfilled lives with their families. He is the creator of the Dads Making a Difference Mastermind, or the DMD for short, to lead men to make a difference in their family, in their business, and in their community, challenging men to create a vision for their family, their business, and their impact, and leads and challenges them to grow in 6 key areas. I'm not going to mention all 6. I'm going to leave that to him to go through. Cam is a loving husband to his bride, Kim, and a father to 2 young children. Professionally, he is a master educator, trusted leadership advisor, and online coaches, and entrepreneurs, creator of the Fight the Dad Bod, and leader of the Dads Making a Difference Mastermind. Speaking of mouthfuls, that's a mouthful, Cam. I just lost all hope of keeping a six pack with that introduction. But welcome to Dave's Head. How's it going?
Yeah,
All
I'm
right.
doing well. I have to admit, I had muted myself a little bit during your intro there because my neighbor decided to start cutting the grass right now, and I didn't want to
Nice.
distract you with that. But excited to be here. Thanks for having
Yeah, believe it or not, I've been distracted by work during my little monologue intro, so it's okay.
me.
But no, I'm happy to have you on. As you heard during my little monologue there, there's a lot to discuss when it comes to the
Mm,
dad bods, the six pack body, the opposite side of that, and so much in between that we're going to touch on. Before we do, I know I did introduce you, but I love for my guests to introduce themselves. So if you could take a moment, tell the people who you are, what you do, and what you're about.
Yeah, like you said, my name's Cam Hall. I have a beautiful wife named Kim. We've been married for just about 13 years in a couple of weeks, and we have two wonderful kids, one 10, one 12. And what I do is I live passionately with my family. I'm a husband first, father second, and then I professionally, like you said, I'm a professional educator, been in education for 17 years. I'm an administrator of a high school, and I also work online with a business, Fight the Dad Bod, that I started in 2015 and really ramped up in 2017 when you were referencing some of those stats and some of those articles. Was right around that 2017, 2018 mark. And I started to see this messaging. It started to really take me off. And so it really ramped up in 2017, 2018. And since then, we've been helping dads live fit, healthy, fulfilled lives with their families. I also host the podcast and work with dads in small groups, really through six key areas of fatherhood and professional growth. And so I'm passionate about those things, passionate about fatherhood. It's one of the best things, if not the best thing in my life. And yeah, that's a little bit about me.
Gotcha. Yeah, I say one of the things I'm most looking forward to as someone who does not have children is becoming a father. It's something that not that I don't dream about, and not that I do dream about, I should say, but it's something that I kind of every once in a while project out there. Like, man, I can't wait until this moment happens with my child, my
Mm,
son, my daughter. I will say for the record, everybody knows this. If I have a daughter first, it's over. It's
it's
just
all right. That
completely
was
over.
me. That
My
was me.
life is over.
Daughter
Yeah,
first. That was it.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm broke, and I just don't know how to say no anymore. That's just kind of what it's going to be. But let's talk about Fight the Dad Bod.
Yeah.
And you did launch that. What was the catalyst for that?
The catalyst for that really was my own journey. I think we're called to serve, we're most powerfully positioned to serve the people who are the person we once were. And I think about at that point in time as a young father, a guy who was struggling with my own physical health, mental health, and maybe my own approach to what it meant to look at my own body in the mirror and feel comfortable in my own skin. So my own journey led into Fight the Dabble, and I'll share just a quick glimpse of what that looked like. I grew up being athletic and being involved in sports my entire life. I played collegiate basketball, and when I was done playing collegiate basketball, and that was back 2002, so I don't want to age myself, but I'll save everybody the math. I'm 43 years old, and so in 2002, I finished my eligibility, and I still had some time in university, in college. And what I did is I transferred to another school, and I wasn't a basketball player anymore. I'd finished my eligibility, but I still had a couple of years left. And I had a really hard time identifying who I was because for so long I had been just propped into a team around 14 other guys and had instant friendships and connection and accountability from a coach, and I didn't have that anymore. And so I was struggling to find out who I was. And I was always Cam, the fit guy. They get Cam, the athletic guy. And I didn't want to let that go. But so I really dove into that, which meant a lot of hours in the gym. I just wanted to be, I'm just, slightly over 6'5". So I'm like 6'5". I wanted to be like 6'5", 235, and just like chisel is what I wanted to be. And so in my late 20s, that's what my goal was. But in the pursuit of that goal, without understanding how to take care of my body and just being probably a little bit selfish, mid 20-year-old single guy, I was working out hours a day. And then I started eating in a way that was getting me desired results, but not really healthy for where I was at. Uh, I actually ate chicken, rice, and carrots almost for every meal for about a year and a half. And in this time, and it wasn't good, man. It was like wake up in the morning, I'd have chicken and carrots for breakfast. 3 hours later, chicken and rice. And it was, excuse me, and it was that process over that period of time. I was getting an amazing look, but I felt terrible. I had low energy. I was irritable. I was hangry. And as that started to continue, my girlfriend at the time, who eventually became my wife, but Kim, she looked at me. She's like, "You're not healthy, man. Like we need to help you." So um, I was like, "Yeah, sure, sure, sure." I look at me. I look great. I turned 30. We got married, and then when I was 31, we had our first child. And I thought, Kim's ex-collegiate basketball player, so am I. We're active, we work out all the time. This kid is just going to fit into our lives, and we'll be that like young, fit couple with a kid. It'll be all great. And it couldn't have been further from the truth. Everything changed when my daughter was born. There was more stress, less time for workouts, less time to prepare and manage meals. There was more quick grab and go fast food type meals, less sleep, and more weight gain. And for me, a guy that was literally starving myself from the macronutrients I needed to function so I could get a desired aesthetic result, I struggled. I struggled immensely. And in the 6 months after Maya was born, I put on 28 pounds. And so struggling with this image and the shallowness of equating who I was to how my body looked, I struggled mentally, I struggled physically, and I got into a really low spot. And I decided I got to do whatever I can to lose that weight, because now I'm a dad and I want to be fit, but I also want to be a dad and be present and have energy and be kind and loving to my wife and to my child. And I was like, okay, I'll go back to what I know. So I went back to eating chicken, rice, and carrots as a 32, 33-year-old. And eventually that weight started to go off, but not in a healthy way. Again, I was starving myself. And I was able to lose the weight. But 2014, my son was born. And in the 8 months following his birth, everything came back and more. I just couldn't manage it. It was unrealistic. And I hit a really low spot. And in 2015, I was an assistant principal of an elementary school. I was had a 2-year-old, a brand new newborn. I was finishing a master's degree, which was a 4-year program condensed into 2. So I was on campus, off campus, and working full time. It was a lot. Really bad spot in my health. Yeah, it was a lot. And so my whole purpose in sharing this is that eventually I got to meet a mentor. His name was Mark. And Mark showed me how to fuel my body in a way that would stabilize my blood sugar, help me burn fat, build muscle, but most importantly, live fit, healthy, fulfilled with my family. I had more energy. I was more present. I was still getting my workouts in, but I felt fueled in them, and they could be shorter and more impactful. And then 2 years later, he's like, "Man, you look great. You've done amazing things. You need to help other dads do this." And he inspired me to start Fight the Dad Bod. And so it started with me just with an Instagram account sharing our family adventures of climbing mountains and riding bikes and going skiing and these things, just to show dads that you can do this. You don't have to give in to this quote unquote dad bod, which we can get into it, but is more than a physical look. It's a mentality. And you don't have to give in to that. You can take control of your health, and you can do that with the why being your family, not a chiseled six pack. And so fighting the Tao is more about fighting the mentality of just settling for, well, this is what society expects of me, and stepping into the role of, no, I want to lead and be an example to others.
So one, that's a remarkable story. I hold on to thoughts when my guests answer questions to kind of follow up with different things. But one of the things I want to talk about really quickly is some of the most beautiful couples are those college athletes that pair up, get together, and make beautiful families going forward. Just a very side thought, because I've known track star couples who've gone on to be, create these large families. I don't know why track stars produce large families. I don't know why. Basketball, obviously, field hockey, and what's the other one? Lacrosse.
Mm.
I've seen a lot of that. But I'm curious, why, to go all the way back to the beginning,
Mm.
why was it chicken, rice, and carrots?
Because I was in the gym and I met this guy who I thought looked how I wanted to look. And he's like,
Mm.
"Yeah, why don't you work out with me?" He's a couple of years older than me. And I'm like, he's like, "What are you eating?" So I tell him what I see. He's like, "No, no, 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 no. Don't eat that. Eat this." And what I've come to realize later was this guy and his other two guys that he was working out with were also putting other things into their body that helped them get to the size and the shreddedness that they were. Um, I never did that. I never took a banned substance to do that. However, they were doing these things behind the scenes, but this is what they were eating. They're like, no, you got to eat this way. And I was like, who? Well, because this is what works. And they were doing more of actually, it was like a cutting diet for a show if somebody wanted to get on stage, but in an unhealthy way. And I just decided, hey, look, I'm starting to look really good doing this. I'm just going to do this and nothing else.
Hmm. Okay. Well, on that same token, how important is nutrition to fighting the dad bod? I know we talked about the mental side
Yeah.
of it. I know we talked about being there for your family, but talk about the nutrition side. How important is that?
Extremely important. Nutrition is our foundation. It's how we fuel our body. It's how we get the energy we need to show up every day. And when I'm working with guys and we talk about nutrition, we have a nutritional coaching program. That's what Fight the Dad Bod is. But within it, we talk about 5 areas. We talk about sleep, which is really important, especially for everyone, but especially dads. We talk about nutrition, exercise, water, and vitamins and minerals. We talk about those 5 areas. Sleep's always number one. Whether you are trying to fight the dad bod or you don't have kids, maybe you're single, maybe you're 21, maybe you're 51. It doesn't matter. Sleep is important for everyone. So sleep's always number one, but then it's nutrition because the cliches like you can't outwork a bad diet. Yes, true. But you also can't feel your best if you're not eating in a way that is designed for your body to perform at its best, really how we were designed as human beings. So nutrition is the foundation in Fight the Dad Bod.
So going back, because you touched on it, and that was going to be my next question anyway. Sleep. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so I've always existed in a space where somewhere between 4.5 to 5.5 hours of sleep is my norm. This is
Wow.
20, 25 years now. But you touched on number one being sleep. So talk about the sleep component of this, because for someone like me who quote unquote is fighting the dad bod, I'm former college athlete, played semi-pro football, played football up until 2 years ago, and decided to that's enough. My body can't take anymore. Um, but sleep has always been one of those things where I'm like, I'll sleep when I'm dead, that type of thing.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Which go back a couple episodes for those who tune in and watch and listen. We talked about that's not a good idea either. But talk about the sleep component, not only in your nutrition, the healthy side of things and fighting the dad bod, but just generally.
Well, just generally, the best way to think about this and help people understand is I use that analogy of your cell phone. If you had your phone, and I don't care if you're an Android or Apple person, doesn't matter, or whatever you're using,
Team
but if
Apple,
you,
Team
yeah,
Apple.
Team Apple, me too. If you have your phone and you use it all day, and then when you go to bed at night, you don't charge it, you wake up in the morning, there's a little bit of battery left, but how long does that last? Well, it doesn't last very long. Maybe you get some out of it in the morning. Maybe it lasts till noon if you're lucky, but it's going to run out. And the same happens with your body. Your body needs a reset. You need to recharge. And when you sleep is when you recharge. We also know that when you sleep, that's when muscle fibers and body tissues repair themselves. It's when neural pathways are connecting. It's in that time of rest and rehabilitation while you sleep that your body actually will grow stronger, will recover, you'll get sharper, you'll learn more, you'll retain more in that time. Your body needs sleep to be able to do those things. And if you're cutting sleep short, it's like you're taking that charge out of your phone at 60% all the time or at 55 or 60%. It's not going to last as long as you want. And you're not going to get the performance out of that device or that performance out of your body that you hope to because you're not fully charged.
Gotcha. And I hate the fact that analogy makes complete total sense because I'm sort of a tech nerd and team iPhone, and it just rings true. I hate the
Yeah.
fact that makes so much sense. Um, talk about education, and as an educator,
Mhm.
I believe you said you're principal, or there's another word you use instead
Yeah,
of principal,
administrator. So I'm a vice principal.
administrator
Yeah.
for a school. So talk about how, as an educator, that's benefited the message and the results you've seen for the men you work with.
Yeah. Here's where it ties in. I started my career when I was 26 years old and wasn't married at the time, was going through this simultaneously, actually, as I was working and still working, trying to get that aesthetic look. But as I have grown as an educator, I've also grown as a leader, but I've also grown in my own confidence of who I am and who I'm called to be. And as an educator, when I get to interact with other people who are coming from all walks of life, all health statuses, you name it, I get to see it in the last 17 years that I've done this. It just reaffirms to me the importance of taking care of ourselves. We've navigated some really unfortunate events as a high school recently. We've lost students. It's been devastating. We've had really times where students have lost parents. We've seen students become, parentless and end up homeless in our school. And I just think about how life would be different for some of these families. Not that they eat the way I tell them to eat, but if they would just take more conscious effort in taking care of their health. I also look at the other pieces of it because nutrition is one aspect of fighting the dad bod, and we can get into that in my purpose behind this. But when you feel your best, you can show up as your best. And when you show up as your best, you're more in tune. And as a dad, that means at home, I'm more patient. That means at home, I'm able to stop for a minute and listen to my kids and interact with them, listen to my wife and interact with her. I'm setting a positive example. I'm showing up more. We're doing more activities. Kids aren't on screens because they're with dad, playing a sport in the back alley, whatever it is. It just sets a standard of the type of life that you want to live and you feel is important. And so when I see in education is that not all kids have the opportunity to grow up in a home like that. My dream is that all kids would have an opportunity to grow up where mom or dad or both in the home, or grandma or grandpa or aunt or uncle, whoever the caregiver is taking care of themselves and their health so that they can then take care of the kids in their care.
Gotcha. And you actually touched on something I wanted to talk about too. So, looking at the dad bod, looking holistically at parenting and both parents,
Mhm.
how do you overcome a situation where one parent, be the mother or the father, is very health, nutrition, taking care of yourself, conscious, and the other one not so much? How do you overcome that?
Yeah, we've actually worked with families like this. We've had a dad come into our program who's like all on board. He's all in. He's going through our program. He's just rocking it, and you want to celebrate him. And one of the things that he's bringing to the calls is like, yeah, just my wife just won't buy in. Like,
Hmm.
she knows that she can see that I'm getting healthier. She can see my energy's getting better, but my wife's in charge of the meals, and she's cooking this, and I don't want to hurt her feelings, and I don't want to.
Hmm.
And I'm not trying to create marital discourse here,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
this thing. But what happens is one person, and I've seen this. My wife works with women, so when a mom's taking care of herself and the dad's not taking care of himself, what happens is you start to create a divide in what you feel is important. So often that involves, and what it's looked like for us and the clients that we've worked with, is one person is like really in tune with what they're eating, they're going to bed early, they have a schedule, they're working out. And working out doesn't mean always going to the gym. It could be walking the dog or riding the bike, whatever it is. And they become more active with the kids, and the other person can't keep up. And when the other person in the relationship can't keep up, there starts to be a little bit of resentfulness because they're like, oh, the kids like you more. Or I just feel guilty because I can't do that. So why don't you just go do it? And you start to create a divide. And so our real encouragement is for people to do this together. When a dad comes into our community, he gets, when we do the program, we give him everything he needs for the whole family. For his kids, we have a how to feed your kid athlete program. We have a how to feed, like, we have the meal guidelines for females as well as males. And it's everybody gets everything because this has to be a whole family movement, a whole family activity that you're going to buy into together to make it stick. Otherwise, it's just another diet that somebody jumps into, and in 3 months, they lose the results that they've gotten and they go back to the old routine. So you have to change a dad's lifestyle or to change a mom's lifestyle. You need to change everybody's lifestyle and create new habits in the home.
And there's a danger in yo-yoing as well, right? Going back and
Yeah.
forth between nutrition, unhealthy, nutritious, unhealthy, right?
Yeah. Well, when you think of yo yo dieting and what happens in those scenarios, this is why the quote unquote diet industry is billions of dollars. It's because people will
Mm.
look for a quick fix. They know they don't feel right. And so they go on the Instagram or TikTok or whatever they're going on, and they're consuming information that says, hey, you need to cut out carbohydrates. You need to eat only 5, 6 hours of the day. You need to do these things. And they start trying these diets that are based on deprivation, cutting things out, eliminating food, only eating during certain hours. And what happens is when you do something on deprivation, you're not going to be able to hold it long term. And so yo-yo dieting happens because somebody will get into something and they'll get results really quickly. They start to create momentum. But if, let's say, you're cutting carbohydrates or you're fasting or you're doing keto, yeah, it might work for 2% of the population. But what happens is in a real life situation where you're raising kids and you're husband and wife and you got work and everything on the go, it's not realistic to sit down as a family at a table and the kids are eating this and dad's on keto, but mom's doing this. And what happens is you fall off because you have low, everything I teach is on low blood sugar, on balanced blood sugar. So when you're depriving your body, you diet, your blood sugar gets unstable. And if you're in low blood sugar, cravings increase. And eventually you give into those cravings. And when you give into those cravings, your blood sugar spikes. And when your blood sugar spikes, you store more weight and then you feel guilty. And then you just go back to what you were doing before. And then something happens. You're like, oh, you know what? It's New Year's. I really need to get back in shape. And the cycle turns over and over and over again. And my goal is to end that dieting madness. My goal is to educate people on how food is fuel, not as a tool to lose weight. So we want food to fuel your family. We don't want food to be the tool that's going to get you to this desired aesthetic or outward look.
No, that all makes sense. And last follow up on this, does your program or do you have thoughts around, if someone's sick, maybe cancer, whether it be
Mm.
some sort of medical ailment, and nutrition to helping those situations?
Yeah. So within our program, here's how we differentiate for someone who has conditions like that. And I just think, actually, I think back to my mom passed away from cancer in 2015. And I think about what she went through in that process. In our program, we work with dads of all walks of life. And we have had dads come in who have had those type of ailments or a disease. But my recommendation is this: you need to seek out professional guidance when it comes to that. There's like, we have dietitians on our team that can definitely help support people in those areas. What I want to do is help people fuel their body in a way where they feel their best. And what I know from my experience and what I've learned is that the men who come in and the women who've come in and who are going through, let's say, cancer treatment, and the people that I've seen is still eating this way makes them feel better because their blood sugar is stable and they have the energy they want. Now, it's not going to cure them, right? There's medical advances and there's medical supports for that. But yeah, here's the thing of what we teach. And I just want to preface this, why I say it's for everybody. We teach proteins, fats, carbohydrates every 3 hours, blood sugar stabilization. When you eat those three macronutrients in the right balance at the right time intervals, you stabilize your blood sugar. And when you stabilize your blood sugar, you're releasing stored fat as energy and you can build lean muscle. This is when we perform at our best. So we want you to stabilize your blood sugar. If I think back to when my kids were little and they were born, what were they doing? They were feeding by either breastfeeding or formula every 2 to 3 hours. Trust me, it was every 2 to 3 hours because we were up every 2 to 3 hours. But breast milk is a proper balance of proteins, fats, and carbohydrates. It's how the human body is designed. So if my body, when I was an infant, is feeding that way, my physiology is the same. My body changes as I grow, but my physiology is the same as a human being on how I break down nutrients, proteins, fats, and carbohydrates. And so by eating those things the way the body's designed, it doesn't matter if you are sick, if you are well, if you are overweight, if you are underweight, if you high energy, low energy, this works for everyone. I can tell you that I'll sit tonight at dinner with my family. We're eating proteins, fats, and carbohydrates in balance. We're all eating the same food. Like, no one's eating differently. So it does work for everyone, despite their condition or where they're at.
Gotcha. So shifting a little bit, one of the other things I like
Mhm.
about just doing research about you for this is the Fatherhood 360 framework.
Yeah.
Um, can you talk about there's 6 pillars that you have of fatherhood? And I don't want to jump into the six or name them for you. I want you to kind of go through them on your own. But what were the goals of each of those six, and how have they improved the fatherhood experience for the men you've helped?
Yeah, I appreciate you asking. That's a great question. Not many people will ask me that. So, with the 6 pillars of fatherhood, the Fatherhood 360 framework, and the reason I call it the Fatherhood 360 framework is 360 is full circle, and it's all encompassing. And when I was coaching dads in Just Fight the Dad Bod, they would come to our coaching calls and they'd ask for more. Like nutrition brought them in, fitness brought them in, maybe it was weight loss that brought them in, whatever it was. But on our one-to-one coaching calls, there were other things that were coming to the surface. How do I show up more for my family? How do I get my spouse or my kids to buy into what I'm doing? How do I lead by example? How do I commit to doing this long term? And strangely enough, I was a nutrition, just doing nutrition coaching, and they'd be like, yeah, finances. And this is the thing with coaching, any type of coaching, people say they can't afford it, but people who are committed to doing it will do it. And then they realize, oh no, like this is worth it. And then that changes
Yeah.
their life. But conversations come up like about family finance and balancing and relationships and marriage and communication and all these things. And so, um, can I give you a little story of what
Sure.
happened to me in 2022? I've always been a fairly fit guy. Coming out of the pandemic in 2020, 2021 as an educator, life was pretty hectic. And I was able to take care of my health physically, but maybe not mentally. And through the stresses of work, with running an online business, with doing some subcontracted business coaching, I was just getting overwhelmed and I didn't have an outlet because at that point in time, the world was opening up and shutting down and opening up and shutting down. And consistency for me, and I think for 90% of the world population, was hard. And what happened is I started to personally experience some health changes that were pretty challenging to me. Um, Things like I started to develop a lump in my neck that I couldn't explain. Uh, it freaked me out, which caused my stress and anxiety to go higher. Combined with the stress and anxiety that I was seeing at work, the instability we had in our home, with the unknown of what was happening, and I started to have an irregular heartbeat. And it came to a head in October of 2021, where it was the middle of the night. Um, I woke up. I was panicked. I was like sweats, and I thought I was going to be ill. Like I thought I was going to get sick. And I think we've all woken up. Maybe we've eaten a bad taco or bad seafood, and we've woken up in the middle of the night sweating. We're like, we need to run to the washroom. Something's going to happen. And so, but I got up and I ran into the washroom, and I'm there. I'm like, no, like I'm not sick. Like what is happening to me right now? I'm dizzy. I feel nauseous, but I'm not going to get sick, and nothing else is happening. And I lost consciousness. And I'm 6'5". I went straight down, smashed my face into the tile floor. It's about 2:30 in the morning, and I lost consciousness, knocked myself out. My wife wakes up, and she describes it as hearing a baseball bat hitting the tile floor. It was so loud. And she tries to open the door, but I've fallen right behind it, and she can't get the door open. And so she's like trying to open the door. This is her obviously telling me this. I don't remember this. And then she said she opened the door, and all she saw was me there on the floor. Uh, Smashed my face, cut my face open, blood all over, blood coming out of my mouth. And she panicked, called 911. Ambulance comes to the house. They hook me up. Everything measures, everything checks out. They can't figure out what's going on. So over the next couple of months, I had a series of tests and everything else put under. They couldn't explain anything until it came down to they were like, "This is stress, man. Like this is stress." Like my doctor looked at me. It was January 20th of 2022. I sat in my doctor's office. He's the same age as me. Kid's the same age. We were still in masks here in doctor's offices at that time. And I had my hat on, my mask up. It was a Tuesday. And he looked at me and he's just like, "How you doing, man?" And I couldn't even answer him. I just started like to well up. My eyes started to well up. I just looked at him like, he's like, "Not good, hey?" I'm like, "No." He's like, "There's nothing in your tests that show this should be happening to you, but you're not taking care of this. You're not taking care of your mental health, your stress. This is anxiousness and anxiety and stress. And I'm going to put you out of work." And he put me out, man. He said, "I'm not going to give you a letter. I'm not going to send it with you because I know you're not going to take it. I'm going to send it right to your employer." And he did. And so for 3 months, I was on a medical leave where I had an opportunity to reflect on what was important in my life. The lump in my neck started to go away. The heart rate started to regulate about 12 weeks in. And sorry, it was about week 9 of 12. And I went back to see him, and he's like, you just need to shut everything down. And he's like, I'm a doctor and I prescribe things. And here's your prescription. You need to wake up at the same time every day. You need to go to bed at the same time every night. You need to get outside into the sun. You need to walk your dog and get into nature, drink lots of water and exercise. That's your prescription. And so I did that for 90 days and I felt so much better. But it gave me a chance to unplug and realize, what do dads really need? Because here I am, a guy who's fighting the dad bod and coaching. At that point, we had coached over 800 men. And I'm like, we've helped all these guys get amazing results, but why am I feeling this way? And it's because I wasn't taking care of the other areas of my life. And it was through that 3 months where the Fatherhood 360 framework was born. I looked at the areas of leadership in my life that I've been trained in. I looked at what I learned from the clients, my own personal experience. I started the Dads Making a Difference podcast June 2022 with this in mind, this framework in mind. So I'm sorry I'm rambling, but I wanted to share that because as I share briefly these 6 things, I think people need to know where that came from. And it wasn't me just trying to come out of thin air of something that, I think this is important. It's what I felt, right? It's what I felt. It's what I observed and what I learned. And so, yeah, I could stop there for a second if you wanted.
No, and just to recap well, first and foremost, not to belittle your story, but there are no such things as bad tacos. Just to put that out there, because you mentioned it could have been bad tacos. That wasn't it, and it's proven it wasn't it. But no, so the 6 things are spirituality, emotionally, physically, financially, professionally, and intellectually.
Right.
If you had to, and this is probably a really unfair question, but if you had to pick one as the most important to start to kind of propagate to the other 5, which of those 6 would it be?
Personally, for me, the turning point in my life came from my spiritual health. And when I took care of that, I started to real feel changes in my life. And then physically, it was that physical health, right? When I started to take care of myself physically, because I was clear on who I was and who I was called to be, that I had a greater purpose, which came from my spiritual health. Then I knew that I had to be able to perform in the way that was necessary. And so I had to take care of my physical health. And so, yeah, that would be the order for me.
Yeah, to go back to your story real quick, it reminds me of the old adage or saying that you can't be there for others if you're not there for yourself.
Very true.
I get told this all the time. My girlfriend, who religiously watches and listens to my podcast, will love this moment. Me admitting that there are times that I do way more for others than I do for myself, and sacrifice the physical health, the emotional health, even of myself to get other things for even financial health at times. But that's what your story reminds me of. It reminds me of that saying that you can't save other people if you're not healthy enough to be there for yourself, which is the summarizing of that. Um, to keep on fathers really quick.
Yes.
What is the key, or what are the keys, I should say, to becoming a father who makes a difference?
Yeah. Great question. Good.
Whether
like
it's
that.
nutrition, whether it's leadership, role models. I mean, there's so many aspects of this question you can answer. But speaking of the nutrition, since we're on there, what's the keys, or what are the keys?
So the key for a dad is obviously taking care of his physical health. You take care of your physical health, it's going to impact your mental health. I was recently asked this on a podcast. Someone said, because I talked about my mental health, my journey with that, and then physical health and how that's important. They asked what was more important than the other. Was mental health more important than physical health, or vice versa? And I thought about it for a minute, and here's what I truly believe. I think our physical health is more important, because if we're taking care of ourselves physically, it positively impacts our mental health. If we're taking care of ourselves mentally, it positively impacts our mental health, but it won't cause us to take care of our physical health. There are people who are mentally healthy but not physically healthy. There are people who are physically healthy who are not healthy mentally. But what I've seen in my experience, what I could speak to, is that when you are taking care of yourself and you are active and you're eating right, you feel better. You are more clear, you are more confident, you are more assured of who you are and that you're capable of helping others. And so your mental health, you start to take care of that. If you're focusing on just your mental health and you're forgetting about your physical health, you're going to be working on your mental health alone for a really long time. And so, yeah, I hope that answers your question.
No, absolutely. And I can't say I agree or disagree because this is your experience and
Mm-hmm.
you're much more expert than I am. But I look at um, mental health issues
Mm-hmm.
manifest themselves more in the physical than physical issues manifest themselves in the mental. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I can see that.
Um,
I felt that too. Yeah.
yeah. So that's I'm agreeing with you that I think that's the way I put it that I understand it. That
Mm-hmm.
you can have physical issues that manifest in the mental, but not necessarily mental that manifests the other way. Or I'm sorry, I actually said it backwards. Mental manifests themselves in physical. So you're not mentally right. You're eating, you're binge eating, you're doing all these different things. But physical issues don't necessarily show up in the mental side
Mm-hmm.
of things because, like you said, you just wake up one day and collapse on the floor. That's not a mental thing. It's you're physically
Yeah.
just not healthy.
But I love what you said there because this lump in my neck that I was starting to develop was a physical symptom of a mental
Mm-hmm.
ailment, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it was like overwhelm and stress and anxiety. But I could have, and what I did, and this is because of who I am, I'm like, oh, here's a physical problem. I'm going to solve it with a physical solution,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I can see where you're saying there. It's a two-way street for sure.
Yeah. So keeping dads on the dad topic and shifting to busy dads. I'm a
Yeah.
extremely busy person.
Yeah.
Um, I have, I think, last count 6 or 7 calendars
Yep.
that I have tied into, Team Apple. They're all connected to my phones
I
and to
love it.
Google. But having your time or your free time maximized,
Mm-hmm.
or the opposite, the use of your free time maximized. Having, I like to say I live through my calendar. My calendar tells me where to go, what to do, who to be with, all that stuff. Not necessarily the greatest way to live a lot of times, but to my credit, I'll pat myself on the back here a little bit. I actually schedule my free times as well.
Yeah.
Um, but when you talk about fitness, taking care of yourself, and fatherhood, how is time management critical to doing all those things?
Extremely critical because you just get busier and busier, right?
Mm-hmm.
Everyone is busy, quote unquote, but there's a difference between, I think, being busy and being effective. Like, I will talk to somebody, a coworker, and I'm like, "How you doing?" "Oh, it's been a busy week." But has it been
Mm-hmm.
effective? Like,
What'd you
you
get done?
can, yeah. Did
Nothing.
you get stuff done? Like, uh,
Yeah.
I'm like you. Like, if I open my phone right now, I have a whole bunch of calendars, and I would love to just live and die by my calendar, but things come up. Uh, well, look at us. Like, I had to, unfortunately, last week when we were supposed to record this originally, I had to reach out to you and say, "I'm sorry, something's come up," and it was something with my daughter, and I'm a dad first, and so I had to put that first, and I had to be there for her, which I appreciate your flexibility, by the way. But for a dad who's busy, here's what you need to do. You need to identify what your most important things are, your most important tasks. I learned this from Craig Ballantyne. Say, what is your most important task tomorrow? I plan my day the night before. I plan my week on a weekend. I need to plan in advance. Just like the guys who want to take care of their exercise, they need to plan their workouts for the week in advance. Well, we just give it to them. You also need to plan your nutrition. You got to go grocery shopping, and if you're a busy guy, you can't just drop everything and just run to the grocery store to pick up whatever's for dinner. Like, you need to have a plan in place. And so being well planned is key for dads, especially if you're busy dad, for busy men in general. And taking care of your health needs to be one of your most important tasks. You need to be one of those big rocks. And so if that's 25-minute workout in your basement or in your backyard, or maybe you're a guy who can carve out an hour or 45 minutes or an hour to go to a gym facility, whatever that is, you need to plan that in your week. You need to put in your non-negotiables. In my family, my non-negotiables are the Friday night popcorn and movie nights with my family. No one's going to book over that. The non-negotiables are the date nights with my wife on the Thursday. No one's going to book over that. Work. I got called to work to do an interview on a Thursday night. I said, sorry, I can't. That's my night with my wife. And they're like, excuse me. I said, no, like, I'm a husband and a father, and then I'm vice principal of the high school. And so they're like, oh no, we respect that. So we moved the interview. And then everybody was like, no, like, that really was good, like, reminder of why we're doing what we're doing. And so then do your non-negotiables, plan them in your week. Make sure you have a plan to achieve those. Then you put in those self-care habits, like your workouts. Maybe you get a massage every 3 weeks. Put that in your calendar. Maybe it's you do yoga. Maybe it's meditation, prayer, whatever it is. Plan that in your calendar. Then you need to put in those other things that are going to be your batch task. I call work a batch task. I get paid to do it. I show up. I have a rough area of time that I know it's going to be, but I can put it into my calendar then, and it happens. But living by a calendar is really important. You got to live by structure. A man without structure is just wandering. And it doesn't matter if you're like super busy, or maybe you're not busy. Maybe you have created a lifestyle for yourself where you have some pretty flexible time, which I appreciate. I work with a lot of guys like that too. But you know what they still have? Structure. Even though their time is flexible, they structure it. There's purpose to it. Everything that we do needs to have a purpose, because if where there's a purpose, there's a why. There's something driving it. And so we get into all that when we're talking with dads. But busy dads, know your why, aim for growth. So you make your plan and you take ownership over it. And you take ownership over it through accountability and community and connection and following through and all those things.
So I absolutely love that answer. And there's two things I took from it. One is the quote that a man without structure is just wandering, which is, you know, looking at my calendar and just think about that while you're talking about that and the non-negotiable, right? So I have implied non-negotiables that are really negotiables because I move them all the time. Um,
Yeah.
and so I think I mean, the one thing I took from that, the most important thing is the non-negotiables part, because I think to that point, I plan for certain things that I'm going to do. I tell my friends all the time, you've got to get me way in advance for something you want me to come to or join or participate in, all that stuff,
Yeah.
because my calendar fills up very fast. But it fills up with things that people ask me to do, organizations I'm a part of, my non-negotiables that frequently get moved around. And I think to your accountability, one of my favorite words in the world, accountability, for me is those non-negotiables have to remove the air quote. And the only people that saw the air quote are people watching on YouTube and Spotify. But I'm doing air quotes around non-negotiables, and that those quotes need to go away for me to be accountable for those non-negotiables. So I love that answer, because to me, what I take away from that is I'm going to look at my calendar and start tagging things with a different color. These are non-negotiables that I can't move,
I got,
because
you know
I
who
can't tell
called,
you how many times
I get called on that. You know who called me on that? My wife.
your
She's
wife.
like, yeah, no, my wife. Like if she listened to this, she'd
Yeah.
be like, no, this is accurate. There was a time where I'd be like,
Mhm.
oh yeah, my non-negotiables are date night with my wife, and my wife would storm into my office and say, "You're full of like,
Mhm.
when was the last time we went on a date?" You know, like,
Mhm.
and I'm like, what? Oh wait, you're right. That was 2 weeks ago. So
Mhm.
am I living in alignment with what I'm actually saying? And so over the last time, I've been, last time I said like last year, I've been like super in tune with like, nope, that's a non-negotiable. I cannot move that. That's why I've called it that. And it's put me in some pretty awkward conversations with people who have requested my time. And I had to turn away an opportunity to guest on a TV show of all things, because it was during a block of time that was a non-negotiable. And I was like, oh, this could be, but you know what happened that non-negotiable time? It just happened to be a night where I got to put my daughter to bed. She's 12. And I was laying there on the bed and we talked for almost an hour. And I got to hear about some things that have been happening to her in middle school that I wasn't aware of. I would have never had that conversation if I would have put myself first. And so, yeah, you got to make your non-negotiables your non-negotiables. That's a hard thing to do as a guy. It's like, oh yeah, I could just make
Yeah.
it work. An extra
No,
15 minutes.
absolutely. It's
Yeah.
Yep. And it's always one of those things too where I used to say, I don't say it much anymore, but if I can, I do.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And
Yeah.
so that's where the non-negotiable gets thrown out of the window, because even though it's a non-negotiable, if I can do something during that time I'm being asked to
Yeah,
do,
do it.
I'll go ahead and do it.
Yeah, you'll say no
Um,
more.
yeah, yeah. When you know more, you do better, right?
Yeah.
But all right. So last question in this segment, and this is I've asked an unfair question before. I'm asking an unfair one again. All the things we've talked about, and even things we haven't. If
Mhm.
you could give one thing that a man could do today, small, big, somewhere in between,
Yeah.
that can positively impact their health, what would it be?
Yeah. Oh, I'll go back to something I said just a few minutes ago because I just cruised right through it, but I'm looking at it and it's on my office wall. This idea, I have these three things. It's kind of like my vision. It's what I learned. Actually, it's from the high school that I work in. This is our vision. It's know your why, aim for growth, and take ownership. It doesn't have to be a massive thing, but you need to have purpose. So you need to know why you're doing something. So if you want to change your health, first get clear on why you want to do it. Because if you don't know why you're doing something, you're diving into it, it's not going to play out. You're not going to commit to it. So know your why, Aim for growth, meaning it's taking ownership of the messy journey, knowing that it's going to be hard. It's not always going to go the way you want, but aim for growth. Just commit to it. Know that 1% mindset is going to get you further ahead. So know your why, aim for growth, and then taking ownership over it means being accountable to someone you deeply do not want to disappoint. And sometimes that can be your spouse. Most of the times it can't because they love us too much to be honest. But say, oh, babe, you look great. Do I? Oh, babe, you've been great and around. Do I? So know your why, aim for growth, take ownership over your own journey by taking action, being accountable, making those non-negotiables. And those sound like three really big things, but that could be as simple as like knowing my why is like, I want to eat healthy this week. Okay, I'm eating healthy because I want to show up for my kids and be the best I can be. Perfect. There's my why. Aim for growth. I'm going to eat 2 healthier meals this week than I did last week. Great. Taking ownership. I'm going to write that on the plan, make my grocery list, and I'm going to go get it done. And after I eat those meals, I'm going to document how I felt. Done. Simple thing this week, right? Doesn't have to be huge, little steps along the way.
Gotcha. And actually, something I wanted to pull back or comment on, I should say, from the last question I asked you, but you mentioned it going shopping. Although COVID was an extremely bad situation for a ton of people around this world, one of the best things that came from COVID for me was I started meal prepping. Something I
Mm.
had never done before, I'd never even thought about doing before. But when you're limited in time to go shopping here, and you don't want to go out because of that reason, and DoorDash and everything else comes to
Yeah.
gets into overdrive, and you have this ability to do all these different things sudden, and you're spending a lot of time by yourself,
Right.
right? So suddenly you're looking at this opportunity. Well, Amazon, which I spent way too much money during COVID at Amazon, but hey, they've got these meal prep dishes, let me grab those. And well, if I'm going
Yeah.
to grab these dishes, I might as well meal prep. But then I started to realize, well, hey, this is actually pretty good.
Yeah.
So that's one of the few things that came out of
There we
COVID.
go.
Just to share that really quick.
It's good.
Simple solutions for complex problems. For over 15 years, SRE Solutions has provided today's solution to prevent tomorrow's problem. SRE Solutions will provide you effective, efficient, robust, and reliable business intelligence, application and website design, wired and wireless network installation, PC support services, and much, much more. For more information, visit their website at www.sresolutions.org. That's www.sresolutions.org. Cam, that's the end of the Q&A segment, and we're going to move to a segment I like to have with my guests called First Thoughts, sponsored by SRE Solutions, Inc. For those joining or listening for the first time, like I always say, shame on you, but I'm happy you're here. The way First Thoughts works is I ask my guests a word or a phrase to get their first thoughts. They're not privy to this because obviously that would ruin the whole first thought thing, right? So, Cam, are you ready for some first thoughts?
Let's do it.
All right, first thought, and I like to do a nice little softball one for the first thoughts. Happy weight, right? Happy weight. What's your first thought?
Happy weight?
Yes.
Like a happy weight where you're at? A happy weight
Happy,
where you
happy weight, like you're in a great relationship and you two together just eating out and having a great time, even cooking great, but you're gaining weight. They call it happy weight because you're so happy with life.
Yeah, I have this is the first time I've heard happy weight. Um First thoughts on a happy weight. Are you actually happy? Are you happy because of your weight? Are you happy because of what you're putting on, the experiences that you're having? So think of, if when I think about happy weight, here's how I would frame it. Happy weight is when you are at a place in your health, in your weight, where you can effectively and enjoyably take part in the adventures of life. In fact, the dad bod, that's one of our mentions, is we want dads to be engaged in the adventure of life. And so if your happy weight is allowing you to do that, great.
Great. All right. Next first thought. Men are in isolation. What's your first thought?
Absolutely. Men are in isolation. Men are dying in isolation right now. Statistics prove that. It's harder for men to connect right now with other men than I think it's ever been before. I don't know if that's a stigma that we've grown up with or not, but we know that, and we see these stats all over the place, but that only 1 in 5 guys will say that he has a friend, like a close friend that he can reach out to and call. And that number, some guys who are married will say they have no friends. A lot of men who are married have no close friends because when they get married, they cut off those relationships, not intentionally, but over time. Oh, I get busy, my kids, my wife, they're my priority. Men need connection with other men. Men need to be able to surround themselves in a community. A community can be 100 people, it can be 2 people, but you need community of men who will speak into each other, encourage each other, hold each other accountable, and have unfiltered conversations. Men are in isolation. And if you're a woman watching this right now who's married to a guy that you might be thinking he's a little bit low right now, maybe he's a little bit isolated, encourage him to get out, encourage him to make a connection, encourage him to connect with a group of men, a community of men, something in your community, something online, just so he can uh, build relationships and not feel isolated.
I would say take up golf. Golf is a great sport to meet guys. We
It
do
is,
a lot
yeah,
of talking about
it
all
is.
types of stuff golfing.
They do, yeah,
Um, a side note, really quickly, my girlfriend would laugh at this because not because of the statistics, but the opposite side of that. So you said 1 in 5 men have said they don't have friends, and she would probably say I'm the other 4 guys who said they do because she teases me all the time about my best friends because I have a whole lot of best friends.
yeah,
But it's just because as a Capricorn, I'm emotional attachment to guys and women who have been important to my life, and they just become attached magnetically to my circle.
yeah.
But so yeah, I'm definitely each of those 4 guys in that study. Last first thought, legacy. What's your first thought?
Mm. Legacy. This is one of the things I think about often as a dad, to be honest. Sometimes we think about legacy as something we want to leave for our kids or leave for others. I don't think if I'm a dad, I think about my son and my daughter and leaving them a legacy. I think legacy is less about me leaving them something and it's more about setting a path for something. So I want them to know that because their dad did these things, was this way, had these conversations, taught me these things, it's opened up a path for me. And my dad's legacy is that he showed me that anything was possible. My dad's legacy showed that love is above all. When you love others, everything else falls into place. When you put people first and you care about them and you have empathy, other things will fall into place. I want that legacy piece to be something that my kids will take on, not something that they will try to measure up to. Um, yeah, like man, that I could sit here and think for a little bit, but legacy is a word that gets thrown around a lot, especially in dad circles. Like the guys I've had on my podcast, the word legacy comes up, and I'm just like, I challenge the idea. It's something that we leave to our kids. I
Mm-hmm.
really am going in the direction and personal development right now of that legacy, something that we impart in our kids and we build in our kids as opposed to leave for them.
Yeah, and I can see and you can and hear if you're just listening or if you're watching, you can actually see that word impacted you more than probably almost every other question I've asked you
Mm.
during this interview. And so I'd follow up and say, or ask, I should say, where's that come from, right? Because you can hear and see the emotional attachment to that word.
Now, where does it come from? It comes from a guy who lost his mom 8 years ago, 9 years ago. And I think about the legacy she left as a mother. Uh,
Mm.
did she leave something or did she show what was possible? I think she showed what was possible. I think about my dad right now, who is one of the hardest workers I know. He'll be 65 this year. He's still working hard. He's working in construction, not because he has to, it's because he wants to, and he loves to serve other people. And he loves to help people out with a skill that he has. And I'm like, my dad's, is he leaving me a legacy or is he showing me how to create legacy? Is he showing me how to help other people and what's possible? So, uh, yeah. And actually, to be honest, I was just in a conversation last Thursday about legacy that was an emotional conversation. So I
Mm-hmm.
appreciate you asking.
No, I appreciate your openness and willingness to answer that.
Yeah.
So that's the end of first thoughts. This season, however, I turned the power of first thoughts over to my guests in a sub segment I call TO First Thoughts. The way that works, I empower my guests to throw a first thought back at me to see what I think. So, Cam, if you had a first thought for me, what would it be?
Dad bod.
Yeah, dad bod. So that's easy because it's been something in my vocabulary for a long time because I've always said I'm going to avoid the dad bod for as long as I possibly can. And so that's been my motivation, besides my love of football, for playing football for 30 plus years and for golfing and for working out. And speaking of COVID, a little while ago, COVID was also very beneficial on me changing my body.
Mm-hmm.
probably since college football. When, as a college athlete, you're in this
Yeah.
program, you're in the gym here, you're practicing there, you're running Sundays, you're doing all this stuff, all in this schedule, right? But since that period of time, it's all been what I learned from that schedule, applying it, doing it whenever I want to, but usually very consistent throughout the last 20 or so years until probably the last 5 years leading up to COVID.
Yeah.
But COVID gave me and gave everyone the opportunity to sit at home and decide what they wanted to do with their time. And I chose to cook and I chose to eat lots of cheese, which my doctor got on me about. Um, but also work out in a
Yeah.
regimen, wake up, have a tea, have a smoothie, work out, eat lunch, a couple hours later, work out in the afternoon, sit on the deck, sweat my butt off because there was nothing else to do. But doing that day after day after day after day, and I shredded myself to the point where I was as close to my college football weight as I had ever been since I left
Wow.
college. But also very healthy.
Yeah.
The healthy side of that, not the unhealthy side. Now the sleep
That's
thing was a
good.
whole nother problem. But that's always been one of my pseudo motivations, right? Avoid the dad bod, avoid the dad bod. And so, especially from this conversation, and also the research I did that I kind of opened up with, not not the shallow side of things,
Yeah.
not because I want to be more attractive, but I'm more receptive, I think, to not focusing so much on the outward look, but
Mm-hmm.
more so what's actually going on inside, whether it be the
Good.
physical, whether it be the mental, because as much as I work out and people compliment me about different things of my physical side, if I'm not actually healthy inside, I joke about my sleep a lot, but when my body wants to shut down, it shuts down. And next thing you know, I have 8.5 hours sleep and I'm like, what the hell happened?
Yeah.
But that's not healthy either. So from this
Mm-hmm.
conversation, one of the biggest things I've taken from it is besides non-negotiables, because that's going to become something I employ tremendously going forward, um, is to make sure I'm doing the right things physically
Yeah.
so that my mental can be better, whether it be sleep, maybe me making slight changes to my physical, whether it's dieting, whether it's working out more, can get me that extra half an hour of sleep, can give me that extra hour of sleep where I don't have to, put blinds over the windows and blacken out the room to get that extra half an hour like I do right now. Because once the sun comes up, I'm just up.
Yeah.
But no, that's kind of that's spilled out, but a lot of what the dad bod is meant to be.
Cool. I appreciate you answering that.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you. All right, Cam. So before I let you go, as I always do with my guests, I invite you, if there's anything you want to talk about or promote, feel free to do so now.
Yeah, absolutely. More or less, I would just love to connect with anybody who is thinking about, making their health a priority. If you're a dad who wants to make your health a priority, you're not sure what that looks like, I'd love to connect with you. You can go to callwithcam.com and just book a time with me. Or you could check out more about me if you want to learn more about me at Fight the Dabod on all social media or fightthedabod.com.
All right, cool. And if you use the code Days at Podcast, the website will load faster. It actually won't, but just saying that. Just saying that. Check out his website and get some positive progress, especially the things we talked about, whether it be mental health, physical health, being a better dad. So important these days. Parenting, I talk about that all the time. We've got to have better parents out there, and that's could be a great way to start that. So again, Cam, thanks for stepping into Dave's head. And as I've said, with all my guests this year, have a great 2024.
Thank you.
My absolute favorite segment of my podcast is my GRIN, which stands for Great Reason to Be in Love with Now. Harry and David has a site called The Table, where they posted in an article 9 ways to get the most out of summer, where they talk about summer being the same length as other months, but feeling the shortest, which is very true, by the way. Summer being my favorite month, I feel like it gets the short end of the stick. People bitch and complain about it being too hot or too humid or both and blah, blah, blah. It's sunny, it's warm, relax. Hydrate if you're hot, get out of the sun if it's too much. But come on. Anyway, to emphasize Carpe Diem, or seize the day, they talk about 9 ways to make the most of summer while spending time with others or re energizing yourself. I'll talk about all 9 with a slight caveat because it's not really 9, but I'll get to that in a second. The first one, they say take short vacations. They say that huge vacations are expensive. Depending. It takes a lot of time, energy, and stress to plan it. Not if you know what you're doing. Then it takes you a few days on the trip to get out of work mode. Not at all. I'm out of work mode at like 2 days before I actually clock out for the last time. And a couple days before it ends, you're thinking about work again. No, I'm not. Not at all. If I'm thinking about work at the end, I'm thinking about the fact that I got to go back to work, not thinking about the actual work. So you're wasting half the trip with anxieties about work. Again, no, I'm not. Just not doing it. What's the fun in that? They prefer long weekends because, quote, it takes less mental energy, costs less, and you're not stressed by missing work for so long. I'll say this. Um, I understand the concept of short weekends. Nothing wrong with the idea. A Thursday to Sunday, Friday to Monday. Pretty cool. I love the idea because you get to take time away. Usually on weekends, you got somebody pulling you here, somebody pulling you there, event over there. We had literally last weekend a wedding and a gala the same day. It was a long day. And so I get it. Taking a little short weekend away makes complete sense. But I also like the idea of a 7 day, 6 night or 10 day, 9 night vacation as well. I want to be fully engulfed in vacation mode. And again, like I said, I don't think about work on vacation, except that one time I had to do a 3 hour call in Cancun. Was not happy about it. But, so I understand long weekends. Take a long weekend, kind of shorten 2 weeks, right? You get the kind of benefit of shortening not 1 week, but 2 weeks if you do a Friday to Monday type of thing. And so I get it. Absolutely get it. Number two, disconnect from social media. And they talk about social media having the drawback of being intensely competitive when people post lavish trips and vacation spots. They urge you not to let social media influence where you go for vacation. Just disconnect and base your decisions on your own research and discussions with your significant other. And while on vacation, they urge you to disconnect because, quote, the more time you spend on social media, the more you miss what's right in front of you. Now, I'll separate this into two parts. I'd never, ever base where I go on vacation on the latest social media trend, fad, or anything like that. Because if I did, I'd been in Tulum by now. But I'm not. I have my places that I go to. If I like some place, I'll go there over and over and over again. Ask anybody who knows me, seriously. And so social media doesn't really influence how I go on vacation, where I go on vacation, how long I go on vacation, how much I spend, any of that stuff. I do have certain preferences that I like the boxes checked every time, all inclusives, adult only, if possible. Not that I'm against non-adult only, just a preference. Good food. So if I go somewhere and the food's not good, I probably won't go there again. And good people. And not just people native to where I'm going, but the staff at the resort. If I can have great conversations, they make great drinks, they have good food, great experience, I'm going to come back over and over again. Because it's not just about, I get to go somewhere and see the same sun I could have seen back at home. It's about going somewhere, seeing the beauty of a place, eating the food of a place, partaking in the relationships and the friendships in the place, the family, right? I go to Punta Cana right now. Hey, family, right? Jamaica. Blood, what's up? Not blood, but what's up, family? That type of stuff. And so social media doesn't really influence where I go. The second part of that comment, I kind of agree with. And it's not that I do or don't do that. I keep with my normal feelings, right? If I feel like posting something, I post it. If I feel like checking up on what's going on in the world, I do. Or I could just sit there and listen to music. Like I take speakers when I go on vacation. I can sit there and listen to music and have a great old time and not care about social media or anything really. It depends on the mood. But social media and my phone is never going to take me away from vacation. You're not going to hear somebody say, dude, you put your phone down, you're on vacation. Now, it may be something like checking email, but even that I try not to do so much. I'll come home and I have 2,000 emails and I got to sort through what's the crap and what's the stuff I actually need to read. And so I understand the second part of that, not so much the first. So number 3, 4, 5, and 6, I'll say are 3, 3A, 3B, and 3C. And that's why I said it's not really 9. So number 3 is get back to nature, right? They say one way to replace that tech overstimulation is through immersion in the natural world. Quote, It's summer. And excuse me, bouncing all around. I just had to move around my light. It's summer, so anything you can do to get outdoors and be around flowers and plants is a great move, says certified health educator and registered yoga teacher Brielle Merchant. Love the name Brielle, by the way. So she says these three things are getting back to nature. And that's why I say it's 3, 3A, 3B, and 3C. So 3A, or 4 to them, grounding. Never heard of this until this article. This involves getting down and dirty with Mother Earth. Quote, you lie down, take your shoes off, and put your feet on the ground with your arms and legs out. Merchant explains it reduces stress and feelings of anxiety and depression, lifting your mood. It can also improve your sleep and help you be more present in your everyday life. Okay. I'd be willing to try it sometime. It sounds like, you're at a picnic with someone, there's a blanket on the ground or whatever, and you just kind of lay on your back, put your feet on the ground, and just look up at the sky. Done that before, but I never did it with an intent of grounding, so to speak, but I'll have to check that out someday. 3B, or number 5, journaling. They say making daily entries in a diary outdoors is a great way to gain clarity and understanding. Merchant says parks are a perfect place to do this. And she notes they're beautiful, normally quiet, and they often have water fountains and gazebos you can sit under. Totally into journaling. I used to be totally into journaling, I should say, to correct myself. I haven't done so much recently, but looking in my office the last couple of days, or a couple of days ago, I should say, I have a bunch of blank notebooks. I used to collect these things all the time because I used to write all the time, and I don't write so much anymore. And so one of the things I do want to try to get back to doing is journaling, to look back and say, hey, what was going on this year? And not through Facebook memories or Instagram memories that pop up every once in a while, but through my own words written down on paper that only I can see. So I'm definitely with the journaling part. 3C, or number 6, coloring, drawing, painting. Any of these practice out in the beauty of nature will lower your stress and anxiety and improve your mood and sleep quality, says Merchant. Quote, they also improve your focus and patience, plus they're great ways to improve our motor skills. As I mess up the word motor skills. So I am the least artistic person you probably know. And so coloring, drawing, painting, although ironically, painting with a twist, my TO took me to do that. I think that was last year. And I did a somewhat decent job. I mean, listen, I'm a bit of a perfectionist, so it didn't look exactly like the picture, the sunflower. But I actually, when I see it, it doesn't look ugly to me. It doesn't look like, I was on drugs or anything like that. It looks like I kind of followed, the lines and what the instructor said, and I did a pretty decent job. It's not selling in some art gallery, but it's not getting thrown in the trash either. And so I'm cool with the coloring, drawing, painting in the sense that I'll participate, but don't expect a Picasso. Just saying. Number 7, meditation or yoga. Listen to the audio of a meditation you like when you're out in nature. It gives you a double dose of serenity. One from the meditation, one from the location. The same goes for yoga outdoors. Quote, yoga is especially great because it also helps you improve your balance and increases your strength. Merchant explains. Now, I will 100% agree with this. So last year, what I used to do, and talking to Cam about, the different things I used to do with working out and all those things during COVID, what I came from that with is kind of building a daily routine. And sometimes I get away from it and have to start back up again. I actually just restarted my workouts again today. But one of the things I added to my workouts last year was doing a morning yoga, and really to kind of keep my back healthy. If you follow me for a number of years, especially on social media, I've had lower back problems since college football. And so I go see a chiropractor. I try to keep my core strong because that helps the back, that type of stuff. But what I started doing last year was in the morning doing yoga followed by an ab workout. Get me really stretched out, loosen my back, lengthen my back, and then do an ab workout to really fire up just kind of everything in my body, especially in my core. And then I'd come back around lunchtime and do my actual workout. And so I did that for a while, and that really got me in really a nice physical shape. So I'm all with the yoga, 100% with it. Number 8, cook and eat plant-based food. They say, if possible, purchase vegetables, fruits, and beans from your local farmers market. Summer is a perfect time to explore new produce or cook it in a new way. Quote, plant-based foods improve your mood, energize you, and reduce your risk of cardiovascular diseases and diabetes. They also give you a new way to stay hydrated in the summer. Merchant says, just add plant-based foods like mint or blueberries to your water to make it more interesting. It's far healthier than sugary sodas. So, my TO loves the Impossible plant, all that whole world, right? And admittedly, I've tried meatballs. I'm using quotes. They weren't meat. I've had the burger. I'm using air quotes. They weren't ground beef or turkey, and they were decent. I didn't switch my whole diet over it, but they were very much decent. And so I'm open, much more open than I was prior to trying those things. Open to those types of foods. Now, blueberries and water sounds great. Actually, one of the things I need to do today is actually make a water mixture with lemon, lime, and oranges to consume during this week. But with the idea of being more hydrated and hydration being part of my normal diet, or getting back to that, I should say. And so, perfectly understandable, not something that I would be against at all. And the last one, number 9, reconnect. They say summer is a perfect time for reunions with loved ones and friends. Quote, start a new family tradition, psychotherapist Jonathan Albert recommends. Go hiking, hit the beach, visit a new city together, and if you all love it, make it a point to do it regularly. If you're a couple, it's a perfect opportunity to work on your relationship. The healthier the thing that you do together, the better, says Merchant. Quote, science shows that any good habit you're trying to develop, if you do it with a loved one or a friend who can keep you accountable, there's that word again, accountable, it really increases your chances of not just adhering to it, but establishing it as a long-term lifestyle choice. Simply put, doing things you enjoy with the people you enjoy being around makes it more likely that you'll keep doing that thing that you enjoy with the people you enjoy being around. Repeat, repeat, repeat. Talking about cycles. So those are the 9 things that appeared on harryanddavid.com on their subsection called The Table. The article is 9 ways to get the most out of summer. Take short vacations. Disconnect from social media. Get back to nature by way of grounding, journaling, or coloring, drawing, painting, doing meditation or yoga, eating plant-based foods, and reconnecting. I want to thank Cam Hall for stepping into Dave's head and having a really genuine, honest conversation, an uplifting conversation, while for men, right, with the dad bods or anti-dad bods, are really about family, about fatherhood, about really taking charge of what's important to you and how much you spend doing and being those things that are important. Not doing, because that sounds kind of weird, but doing the things that are important to your health and the people you love. Check out his website at www.fightthedadbod.com, all one word, fightthedadbod.com. Check him out on social media on Facebook, Cameron.hall.144. So facebook.com/Cameron.hall.144. On Instagram at fightthedadbod. On LinkedIn /CamDHall, all one word. And on YouTube at Dad's Making a Difference Podcast. Support our sponsors, SRE Solutions Inc. at www.sresolutions.org for all your PC troubleshooting, antivirus removal, network cabling, Wi-Fi setup, and so much more. Again, check them out at www.sresolutions.org. And for all your adoption questions and needs, check out Adapt to Adopt at www.adapttoadopt.org. Again, that's www.adapttoadopt.org. And if you're interested in sponsoring in Dave's Head in 2024 and beyond, reach out to me on any of my social media and we can make it happen. Lastly, this season, I started giving you a quote to cap each episode. Today's quote is by Og Mandino. He's an American author and salesman who wrote the best-selling book, The Greatest Salesman in the World. And his books have sold over 50 million copies and have been translated into 25 languages. In the spirit of health and doing what's right for you, cherishing what's important, and spending quality time where it matters, I bring you this quote. All the gold in the world cannot buy a dying man one more breath. So what does that make today worth? Live in the moment, cherish the moment, so that you can remember the moment, and those you spend that moment and those moments with can remember you. Nothing's more important than the experience with those you love and those you care about. Before I let you go, a reminder, we are on summer break. We've reached that time where we're off until August. We're off until September. So what does that mean? It means you have lots of time to catch up on season 5 and so much more, 4, 3, 2, and 1, if you so desire, before we come back to you in September with a stretch run before the election and to wrap up this year in November. As always, thank you so much for tuning into Dave's Head. Check me out, www.daveshead.card with 2 R's.co, on YouTube, Spotify, and so much more, Apple, and all those other things. Team iPhone, by the way. Like we said, Team Apple. So Confetti, DMD, and Carpe Diem. All great reasons to be in love with now. Have a great summer. That's all for this episode of Dave's Head. New episodes released on the 2nd and 4th Friday of the month. For all things Dave's Head, check out our website at daveshead.card with 2 R's.co. Subscribe to watch new episodes on YouTube or Spotify video, or to listen via your preferred podcast player, go to anchor.fm/Dave's Head Pod. Thank you for watching or listening. As always, enjoy life, because life should be fun. Take care.